Welcome to Late Reviews. Today is going to be a very special day for me because I'm going to talk about one of my all-time favorite movies, a movie that really means a lot to me, and that is not the only reason why I decided to put on the camera, even though I actually really hate my background and the lighting in my apartment, and it's really ill-suited for it. It's because I have the jacket from said movie, so I thought it would be a very good opportunity to actually put on the camera to add this visual aspect to the video when I can actually be wearing this jacket that will make me sweat my ass off. But that's a sacrifice I'm willing to pay. Beverly Hills Cop 1984 was made when Eddie Murphy, it was quite early in his career, but it was also where his career peaked pretty much. He had already made Trading Places, and he had made 24 Hours, and he was also a stand-up comedian. He even started dabbling a bit with also rapping and making, well, not rapping, but making music. He was doing everything, and he was just a very talented comedian, very talented actor. Well, the 80s was really his decade. Beverly Hills Cop 1984, it opens up with Eddie Murphy playing Axel Foley. You have this very nice establishing scene with him pretending to sell smuggled goods in order to arrest some criminals. Police show up, they're chasing the criminals through Detroit, they're crashing into things. It's a really cool scene, really good establishing scene. Also really good at showing just how dilapidated Detroit is. And as a result of this operation not going well, Eddie Murphy gets into trouble with the boss, and returning home from work that evening, he encounters his old friend who has broken into his apartment. He has been in jail, but 6 months ago he was released and then worked in Beverly Hills as a security guard, just now letting Axel Foley know that he's actually out of jail and what he's been up to for the previous 6 months. And they are going out reminiscing about their old times. Turns out that Axel Foley has a rather rough background. He's been a street urchin. He grew up in a rough neighborhood. We don't know anything about his family, but it is revealed that he used to steal cars and that sort of thing when he was a kid. And he then decided to become a police officer. And that this friend he's now meeting actually took all the blame for something they did together, or maybe even something he did alone, Eddie Murphy, just so that Eddie Murphy, Axel Foley, could become a police officer, the friend knowing that this is what Axel Foley wants and that he could be good at it. So it's a really good, strong relationship they have. They're having a good time. They're getting really drunk. Returning to the apartment that night, the friend is killed. He's killed because he stole some Deutschmark bearer buns, some German bearer buns, West German bearer buns. I have many times tried to understand what bearer buns are, and I just find it a bit too complicated, so I'll not explain it in this video. But yeah, he's killed for stealing from what we presume to be organized criminals. And Eddie Murphy wants to find the murderers of his friend, the culprits. Eddie Murphy is knocked out, so he never sees who actually did this. That's important for the plot. He's knocked out before any of this happens, but he's not allowed to go on this case as the boss is really fed up with him and he doesn't really trust him. He has already proven that he is a bit of a loose cannon who doesn't really do things by the books and who ends up not always getting the results, even though he doesn't go by the books. So he requests vacation, uses the vacation time to go to Beverly Hills to track down his old friend who now works in an art gallery owned by the same company that hired his friend as security. From the gallery, he gets more information, tracks down someone called Victor Maitland, uses his charm and his deception and his acting skills to get into the Victor Maitland's office. And it is very obvious that Maitland had something to do with this, as during questioning, Maitland has his security guards take Foley in their arms, go downstairs, throw him out a window, to which the police arrive and arrest Murphy. Foley, sorry, I'll just use him interchangeably.
You guys are arresting me for getting thrown out of a fucking window?
And he's taken to the police station, which is much nicer than the one in Detroit, where we meet two of our other main characters, which is Sergeant Taggart and Deputy William Rosewood. These are two cops that go strictly by the books, and so does their boss, their whole department. Everything there is strictly by the books. It's just a very different procedure, very different approach than what Foley is doing himself, but also what he's used to.
And a foul-mouthed jerk from out of town.
Foul-mouthed? Fuck you.
And then from here on out, sometimes with the help of the department, but more often so against their attempts at preventing him from investigating the murder of his friend, but more so the business of Victor Maitland, which turns out to be much more than art, but smuggling. I already said I will spoil it, so it's about smuggling. He's smuggling everything. Drugs, bearer bonds, you name it. I think those are the only two things. And that's pretty much what I'll say about the plot, because there's so much to this movie, and the plot itself is actually not really what makes it great. It's all the characters in it. It's all the scenes. Most importantly, it's Eddie Murphy. There is not a single bad performance in this film, but Eddie Murphy just steals every scene. There are a few other people who really compete with him to steal the scenes, but Eddie Murphy is just spectacular in this film. This movie, why it sets apart from so many other, this kind of counts as a buddy cop movie, but it's not exactly a buddy cop movie. It's more of it is an action comedy, but much more comedy than action. And the reason why it works so well and why it's so different and unique, Axel Foley is not an action man. He is not a very capable fighter. He's a marksman. He's really good with shooting when he tries to, but he doesn't really use brawn. He doesn't even really use sneaking a lot to investigate. He is a bullshit artist. He is very, very good at convincing people that he's playing a role because he's so confident. He has such an overpowering persona. When he needs it, he plays the authority figure. When he sneaks into a warehouse, a customs warehouse or something like that, he fakes being an agent from Agency for Warehouse Security and has all the people there believing him, not just believing him, but actually helping him in uncovering, well, what he's trying to uncover there, which is what's being smuggled and where it's sent to and all those things. And then even when someone is trying to call his bluff, he's just doubling down. He is such an overpowering persona that he just...
You got some kind of warrant for this?
I want you to know something, pal. And I want all y'all to know something. I can have 25 agents down here in 15 minutes to march in here, snatch your bond from underneath you, and you guys will be out of business permanently if I don't get some cooperation. Is that
this
understood?
person who has such large balls that he seems that he's actually who he pretends to be, even though he's full of shit. And there are multiple scenes like that, but he's not just the authority figure. He has so many faces in this movie. He has so many characters he's able to play. In one scene, he is playing a really, really good drunk guy in order to take down two people who are trying to rob a strip club. In another scene, he's playing a very stereotypically homosexual man in order to sneak his way into a country club or this rich club.
Oh yes, Victor Maitland, the gray-haired gentleman, very dark-skinned, Capricorn.
He's seen playing multiple roles, and he's so good at getting his way. Also, just him getting a room at a hotel is just, that itself is a good scene. I mean, he nails every scene just because he chooses the scenery. He acts the hell out of every scene, and he shows so many different acting skills, so many different faces, so many different personas. This movie is very grounded. That's also another thing I will say. It is a comedy, yeah, but it's grounded. None of it is really unrealistic. Nothing is too goofy. It's very believable. That's also what makes it really work. So yeah, that's where it came from. He's not really one who uses brawn, and yeah, he uses his brain. He's smart. He's very street smart. He's also smart, intelligent, meaning that he's actually able to outsmart the detectives, the police department in Beverly Hills, just because he's so much wiser than them. He knows how street thugs think, but he knows how police officers think, and he's just very good at doing his thing. He's a very good rogue police officer because he just doesn't like authority. He actually does illegal things in the movie. He does steal things. He's not the most morally righteous person, but he is damn charming. He's so damn lovable. And I think enough about him. What about the other characters in the film? Because there's also a lot to say about them. This movie has two of my absolute favorite side characters of pretty much any movie I've ever seen. One of them is William Rosewood. Rosewood is this naive, kind cop who doesn't really know when to shut up. He doesn't know what to say. He is often getting into trouble or getting into deeper trouble just because he doesn't keep his mouth shut. If someone mispronounces his name, even though it doesn't matter at all that they don't say the right name, and they might actually make the situation better, he's so distraught that they are not saying it, that he does feel the need to correct them. And that's the thing. He's just this very lovable new guy at the job. I don't know how long he's been working there for, but he seemingly has never been in a gunfight. He's doing everything by the books. He's trying to be the correct officer, and he's usually not really understanding anything that goes on. And he's played by Judge Reynold, and he's just so damn good in this movie. He's so lovable. The first time he's in a shootout, he gets ecstatic about it. He realizes he enjoys the adrenaline.
You know what I keep thinking about? You know the end of Butch Cassidy? Redford and Newman are almost out of ammunition. The whole Bolivian army is out in front of this little hut.
And I just absolutely fall in love with this character. Taggart, the other police officer, is quite good as well. He's this old cop. He's not too far away from retiring. Worked his entire life, probably in Beverly Hills, just always going by the books. He is really not happy about doing anything that is not strictly proper procedure. And that's a lot of the conflict in it is him going up against Foley because Foley is just this renegade cop who, although he has the mind on the right thing, he knows how to achieve results, he doesn't do it the right way. But then Taggart actually recognizes the talent of Foley, and therefore they have to cooperate doing this film, basically. And the third character I really want to emphasize here is Serge. He's homosexual, but he's a bit stereotypical homosexual. And honestly, this movie has a lot of gay commentary and gay jokes. I don't think it's necessarily bad. It's not used in a very offensive way, but I can still see that it's also not, because it's a bit over the top whenever it's done. It's not exactly done in a respectful way either. There are multiple scenes. There's one where one of the thugs doing the smuggling operation tells his friend about him going to a bar and there was a man flirting with him, and because he flirted with him, he wanted to kill him. But this is a thug saying it, so that doesn't mean that you should harass homosexuals. It actually means that only the thugs think it's a good idea to harass homosexuals. Then there is a banana scene that I like. It's very, very short, but it's very charming as well. Well, there's the scene where Axel Foley plays a homosexual character, and it's done really well. It also is the way it's done also shows some of the homophobia, or at least the conservatism of these elite circles. So again, not necessarily being a joke about homosexuality, but actually about how people view it. At least that's, I think, what you could argue. And then there is, of course, Serge. And Serge is this owner of this art gallery. I mean, Maitland is the owner, but he's manager. He's managing the art gallery. And he is just this, I think he's supposed to be maybe French, but judging by his name, his accent is a bit all over. And he's just hilarious. He doesn't do much, but what he does is amazing. And there's this commentary where his assistant is having this bear, his chest is open so you can see all the hair, and his response to that is amazing.
It's not sexy, it's animal.
No, it's not sexy.
I don't know, it works in the movie. It doesn't work as well when I'm retelling it. And he's only in 2 scenes in this movie. And in the second scene, he's not doing a lot other than saying espresso with a little lemon twist.
You want to get a lemon twist?
Yeah, sure, if it's no bother.
No, don't be stupid.
Also, I do have talking about homosexuality, I have a little small fan theory. I'm not going to elaborate too much on it. Watching it this time, I actually thought that maybe Maitland, the main bad guy of the film, is homosexual. The evidence for it is a bit vague. It's not that strong, it's not that compelling, but his bodyguard, he's always around his bodyguard. The bodyguard is always with him. He's even dining with him at the country club. They have a very strong relationship, it seems. It might be only a work relationship, but we never see Maitland with a woman. When we see where he lives, there's not a sign that there's a woman there. There are no women around. So it's not a strong, compelling argument, but there is this thing that he might be a closeted homosexual. Not important, I just wanted to bring it in here. The movie is also quite good at doing setup and payoff, sometimes even with long payoff and showing character progression. I think the best example I can use here is that he tries early on to get Taggart and Rosewood out of trouble by faking a story to their boss, Bogomil. And Bogomil is actually about to buy it, but then Taggart decides to spill the beans and be honest because, he's the proper conduct police officer. He doesn't lie. He accepts any blame that might go his way if he's actually responsible for it, which is honorable. And then at the end of the film, they have to, explain themselves to the chief of police, who is an asshole, a stuck-up asshole. And this time it's Bogomil telling the bogus story because he's the one who is in charge, so he's the one being asked to give him a report of what's up. And this time Bogomil lies, and Taggart accepts the lie. So it shows that Taggart has come to the realization that sometimes doing everything by the book, proper police conduct, being honest, is actually not the right thing to do, which is a weird lesson, but it is still true, at least for this movie. That's a good payoff. I think I also have to bring up some of the issues of the movie, because talking about, I think it is pretty much a perfect movie, but it does have some issues. And I think actually talking about this setup and payoff, the first time we meet the chief of police, it's established that he has excellent hearing. So much so that him being in another room behind a closed door, Axel Foley makes a impersonation of him, and everybody tells him not to do it because everybody says that he can hear him through the wall. Then the second time we meet him, at the end of the film, right after they have given him the false report and he is boarded, he leaves. I think 3 seconds pass, and then Foley tells Bogomil,
Lying your ass off.
and that is actually doesn't work, because in this situation, the chief of police should actually be able to hear him. He doesn't. So that is one time where the setup and payoff doesn't really work off. There is another issue I have with the film, and it's just because they had to do this, I guess, in order to make it work. His friend who shows up at the apartment has the German bearer bonds with him. That is important because that's the whole point of us knowing that he's in trouble, of the people tracking him down, and also of Foley knowing that there is something fishy going on in Los Angeles. They go to the bar. We see him with the bearer bonds at the bar. He has them in this brown brown paper bag. Why would he take 10,000 Deutschmark with him to a bar instead of leaving him in Foley's apartment, which is a cop's apartment? Why does he take it with him to a bar where he gets shit-faced? That is a big plot hole. I know it's so that the bad guys can show up and take them out of his hand. Couldn't they just have opened the apartment and they assaulted him as they went into the apartment? Did they have to do it that way? It doesn't seem necessary, and it is a plot hole that annoys me. Again, it's not a big issue, I just think I had to bring it up. One thing this movie also does really well that I do like, it has no love interest. It has a female character who is a childhood friend, and she's not a love interest, she's Gent. She's the woman working at the art gallery, who's also the friend of Foley's friend who died. They were all childhood friends. She is not a damsel in distress, she's actually shown to be quite a capable person. She doesn't really like the idea of going against her boss because she believes her boss is a good man. But she believes Foley more and agrees to help him out. She is doing quite well in her life. She has a lot to risk. So actually her helping Foley is quite a big deal. With him having no proof really at all. Other than, this guy who worked for the boss died. But she believes him. They're good friends and she knows he's a capable cop. So yeah, she's trusting, but she's a good friend. She has, not really fitting that well, but she has balls, she has courage. And she shows her courage even more than towards the end. She insists on helping Foley out on some quite dangerous things. It completely backfires, and that's actually the problem because at the very end of the movie, her character is turned into a damsel in distress. Only in the final scene, she actually is active in getting herself rescued. She's never a complete damsel in distress. She's quite a capable person. She even has jokes that are quite okay. She's not a bad character. She's the movie's only female character, which is a bit, but it's okay. And I like that there can be a woman in a movie like this without it being a love interest. I just don't like her character that much. She doesn't grow on me. I don't know why. Maybe it's just because the movie is full of so many other people who are doing their own thing. And maybe it's good to have this more level-headed character. So it's not just joke on joke on joke, or that every character is so powerful. I think she's doing a very good job at what she's doing. I just can't say I love that character. Sadly, I don't know if someone out there thinks she's lovely and can explain to me why. I would actually be very happy. I would like to like her more than I do. Because we have Jonathan Banks playing the bodyguard of Victor Mainland, and he's quite decent. He doesn't do that much in the movie, but what he does is good. He's doing some quite good scenes in it. There's one point where Foley really humiliates him at the country club, and it's very obvious just with his eye movements that he wants to kill Foley and that Victor Mainland has to calm him down and tell him not to do it, to be rational. And then, we have Victor Mainland, who is... I am really struggling with this, because in some ways I think he's a really good villain. In some ways I think he's a bad villain.
I'm all ears.
What I like about him, because he's a businessman, he's a respected man, and he's always being stiff. He holds his composure. No matter what happens, he doesn't lose his cool. He doesn't change his position. He doesn't act irrationally. He always keeps completely calm looking, and he can even be very intimidating while in this state and while giving this slight smile.
But it seems painfully obvious you haven't the slightest fucking idea who you're dealing with.
And I think that's very, very good. But at the same time, he's just not that intimidating, and he's not that intriguing. He's a good villain. He's not the most memorable villain, but he's a good villain, and I do like him in the movie. It could be better, but it's not bad. I've already said way too much, so let's actually go on to talk about Beverly Hills Cop II, 1987. The movie already opens up showing that this is a next level for Foley. In the first film, he started out looking at as this petty smuggler. In this one, he has a suit, he has a sports car, and that's because he tries to portray himself as a businessman to get a more prominent criminal caught this time. And it takes more time, and therefore he needs all these things to do. He's given 3 days, this time limit 3 days to solve this crime But at this time, Bogomil is attempted assassinated in Los Angeles as he's trying to track down this string of crimes that's going on. There's a string of robberies that are done very professionally. And that's also how the movie opens. A very nice action scene in a jewelry store. So Foley decides to go back to LA instead of actually having to be in Detroit to crack open this case. He instead has his friend from the first film going undercover instead of Foley driving out his car, hang out with nice girls. So Foley goes back to LA to help them solve this case. And again, very briefly, the plot. Taggart, Rosewood, and Bogomil are the only people left from the old police department. They have a new boss, and that boss is a complete asshole. And is even more strict and more by the books than anyone we've seen before in the movie, and he's making the life terrible for these people. They're trying to investigate this, and they are doing it a bit undercover, trying to get some information, not by the proper means, and that means that this new chief is pretty much destroying their career. Bogomil is fired, and which is after that he's being shot. Taggart and Rosewood are demoted to be traffic police officers. And it's at this time Foley arrives. Bogomil does not die. He does survive, but he's not really in the movie anymore. Instead, his daughter is helping a bit with the investigation, but she's also not really in the movie that much. And Foley quickly realizes that there are a few connections here because he finds a bullet at the scene, a cartridge at the scene, and tracks it down to this gun club. And I will not say much more about the plot, as it's just him and Rosewood and Taggart once again trying to catch some criminals. There are more criminals involved this time, and there are more action scenes. And what does this movie do that's so good? And, well, it really develops Rosewood as a character. So in the first film, he was this nice, naive officer who at the end of the film realized actually this being in a shootout is cool. That he liked being in shootouts, apparently, because he's gone quite psycho in this one. He has replaced his tiny service revolver from the first film with a goddamn Dirty Harry revolver. And his home is full of plants that he plays music to, but his walls are decorated with Sylvester Stallone movies. He has a Rambo 2, I think, or Rambo 3 poster. No, Rambo 3 was not out yet. He has a Rambo 2 poster on the wall. He has a Cobra poster on the wall. He's filling his house with guns as well. And he just has all these quite psycho things he keeps saying.
But everybody loves Mozart.
Now he wants action. Now, whenever there's a chance to be in a gunfight, he jumps at it.
Trust me.
Although this is a weird dynamic, it's very believable when you saw the ending of the first film that this is actually the direction the character went in, and it's a very interesting direction. Taggart himself has not changed much. He's still mostly by the books. He has changed a bit since the first film, but not too much, I would say. And he's also going through his wife just left him, to which, again, Rosewood has a very funny comment.
Really have to admire her for having the courage to leave you and search for a better life. I'm sorry. I was trying to make you feel better.
But his wife left him, and he just goes through the movie pretty much hating women, being very upset about any kind of situation. There's another, again, they upped, like, even though the other one was Beverly Hills, this one is even more high life. So this time they are at another strip club, but a much more fancy strip club than the one in the first film. And even then, Taggart still doesn't like looking at the women. The movie also has more, calling it cameos, I'm not entirely sure. It does not have Serge in it anymore, but it has more characters with small roles. It has Hugh Hefner in it, showing up just because they go to the Playboy Mansion. Chris Rock being a valet at Hugh Hefner's house. This was before Chris Rock was really a big deal, I guess. One of his first roles, I think. It has a scene with Gilbert Gottfried in it. That is, well, Gilbert is playing Gilbert, but it's a good scene. They need to print something. They need to test something on the system because they have a hunch that maybe he's the lawyer. I think he's the lawyer for the bad guys, and they need to test some printing paper or do some swipes. I actually forget exactly how the scene is, but they pretend to be traffic cops and gives him a lot of tickets he hasn't paid, and it's actually his wife's car. So he's really upset, and he's trying to get out of the situation to have the problem go away, that it will not go on his official record. But it's just really good that he's so upset when he's so mad at his wife. Bitch! There's this thing he says, okay, but so what if I have one thing in this hand that you have all your focus on, so you forget this thing you have in this hand. So what if I have something here that will make you forget about what's here?
This hand you'd be concentrating on. That hand you'd go, what did I have there? I don't even remember.
And it's a really good scene. It goes on. It doesn't even go on for too long. I do like the scene a lot. This movie just has a lot of good scenes, and I haven't even talked about the criminals yet. It has Bridget Stallone in it as the big femme fatale shooter woman, the Amazon. She's quite cool in it. Not amazing, but cool. It has this British mustache guy who is also quite decent. The villain itself, the main villain, I forgot where I've seen him before, but he's also quite decent. I mean, the cast is good in this film. And some of his charming bullshitting scenes are even better in this one. Whereas he had to bullshit his way into a hotel before, this time he goes to a house that's under construction, or reconstruction, or refurbishment, meaning the owners are away, but the construction workers working on it, and he pretends to be a construction inspector that apparently there are new plans for the house, so they have to stop working there. That's what he explains to them. And the way he does it is so good, he's so convincing that he actually makes all these builders go home. And he even congratulates them for the work they've been doing so far and that it's not their fault that the homeowners changed their mind. That is such a spectacular scene also. It's a really good scene that he has this whole mansion to himself. It's very nice. And there's another really good scene. They are going to this gun club to get into it because he's not a member. He pretends that the medicine, that Rosewood's medicine. Also, why does he have so much medicine? That's a bit weird. It does play more into his character being a bit off. So he pretends the medicine is actually sound-seeking bullets. Sure. Not only is this absurd, but the way he acts the scene is amazing. And he even convinces the receptionist that this is the case, that these are sound-seeking bullets. So much so that not only he's not thrown out, she actually ends up paying him to take the bullets to the right office after telling him where it is. It's such a good scene. This movie is a really good sequel. I have not watched it as much as I watched the first one, but I should. This is a really good movie. It has a very good... Again, there are some things about it that makes it feel less like a Beverly Hills Cop movie. The final showdown, the final shootout is really good, but I still prefer the more contained, low-key shootout of the first movie. This one is going bigger and better, and that is, I do like when they go bigger. But the first movie, it being more contained is cool. The shootout itself in the first movie, there are a few of them that are not that good. I don't like how the enemies are shooting with Uzis, the bad guys, the thugs are shooting with Uzis. And they're just making these perfect lines of hits. Like when you see where the bullets are impacted, it's just this perfect, things you might see in the 1930s, just seeing in this film, because like they're doing this, it should not be that perfect when they shoot, considering recoil and that they never really hit the protagonist, but always hit near them. That's like one of those places in the movie where it feels a bit silly. Damn, I want to talk about the first movie again now. I think the reason also why it's not as good as the first one is that we already have all these characters established. The first film, much of the love is discovering, to getting to know these characters, get emotionally attached, to get a deeper understanding of these characters in the movie and see what they go through. So the fact that they've already been established means that there is less intimacy in a way, there's less to get to know. We are now invested from the beginning, which is nice, but it does mean that maybe that's why the movie doesn't feel as good as the first one, because I do think it's a near perfect movie, and I mean, it does have this jacket in it. That's a good jacket.
It's like I'm in at 14.
But it is tainted. The jacket is tainted, the movie is tainted, the franchise is tainted, because there's a third movie that came out 1994. That is a whole 7 years after the second installment. This movie is universally hated, and I do think it's a bit unfair. But I also think it's warranted, that it is actually justified that this movie is hated, because this is an awful sequel to the two first movies. But it's not an awful movie in its own right. Let me explain. So, the movie itself completely misunderstands what Beverly Hills Cop is. That's the main thing about it. It opens up with Foley now leading a squad of police officers to do this sting operation, this operation on this illegal chop shop. But before they arrive, and Foley says, we can handle it, we don't want it to be a shootout, so he actually calls off the SWAT team that's supposed to have helped them out there. Even though it was ordered, he calls it off. Big mistake. Because before they actually arrive at the scene of this crime, or this chop shop, another person arrives with a small entourage. The people that apparently he told them to steal some government things. We don't know what they are stealing, but something owned by the government. And to cover their tracks, they decide to kill all these people at the chop shop. But already within the first 5 minutes, we actually have a big flaw with the movie. At this chop shop, so the people working there, one thing is, of course, they're criminals. Petty criminals, but criminals. They're all unattractive, mostly white men who look really rough. On the radio, this song starts playing, and they start singing along and dancing along like it's some other movie, some other kind of comedy, some wacky bad early 90s comedy. And it's not, it's Beverly Hills Cop. Beverly Hills Cop should be a grounded story in a believable setting, in a believable universe, and this just fails at doing that. And it gets worse, but yeah, they're all shut down. Foley arrives with the police and it's a big shootout. The shootout itself is okay, nothing too amazing, and then of course, Foley's boss, the boss who is having this love-hate relationship with him, arrives and is shot, and then it's revealed that somehow these criminals have a connection to something called Wonderland in Beverly Hills, of course. He goes there to investigate and meets up with Rosewood. Rosewood is now, and this is another big issue of mine, because we completely understand how Rosewood could develop from what he is in the first film to the second film. It's actually well established. It might be a bit weird, but it does work well. But now he's apparently this leader of the Green Lines. So this agency, police agency that helps cooperate efforts to catch criminals that are beyond the county lines. So he's actually having a very big administrative and active job that requires him being the leader of the desk jockeys. To be a mastermind, strategic mastermind, organizational mastermind. How can he go from the maniac he is in the second film to this? There's no trace of that in this movie. He's no longer the person he was in the second film. He's more the person he was in the first film, but even then, it's not really believable. I do like that he's back in the movie, but I don't like what they did with him. Taggart is now retired, so they got the new Taggart, which is, honestly, he's fine, but he feels like he could be in any other cop movie.
Don't forget, we play by the rules around here. Yeah, I've heard Taggart stories.
He doesn't grow on me. He's an okay character, but I never really care about him too much. I don't think it's his fault. He's actually doing a decent job, but the movie just has so many issues. Foley is then going to investigate at this park. He's met by park security who don't want to let him in, and it's a bit suspicious. So he goes in and discovers that apparently this security goes into this underground network under the park where they have all these tunnels connecting all the different rides. And he goes in there, nobody asks any questions. I was sure fine. And as he walks around there, he just decides to go into a control room for something called alien attack. This lady decides to show him just as he enters, and he asks, "What's this?" She decides to activate the ride. Was the timing of his arrival just good, or and what does she do there? That's the only thing she does, just handling that ride? Later in the movie, we have her bring VHS tapes, surveillance tapes, to the office of the head of security. So is she only working on that ride, or is she also somehow involved with surveillance? This movie is poorly written. Also, the second film didn't have a love story. Of course, this one has a love plot with Foley and this woman. Why did they have to cram a love story into this? Come on, please don't do that. Not in my Beverly Hills Cop, no. The third film is just not good. I don't understand what makes the first one work. So yeah, it turns out that this person showed up in Detroit to kill people. He's one of the heads of this private security company working at the park. He's the pillar of the community, giving back to children. So if he's so influential, so rich, and even has his own private security company that do dirty work because they are deeply criminal, why did he personally go to Detroit? That makes no sense. Why didn't he just send his thugs to do the job? Why did he have to show up personally? That's really, really, really stupid. That's a big plot issue. And yeah, it turns out everyone here is involved. We have Lance Henriksen at home, FBI guy. I'll just put him up here so you know, understand. I thought it was Lance Henriksen at first, but no, it's not. It's just a guy who looks a lot like him. And honestly, this movie is just full of characters, but they're not really that interesting. The owner of the park is in it, and we're supposed to care about him because everybody cares about him, but he's not. Also, one thing that's awful is the music in the two first movies is really good. The music in this is awful. This movie also is tonally different. It becomes a kids' movie. It has children's music playing, and the music plays how we should feel at times. The first one had such amazing sound design. The sound design, I didn't even comment on that. The sound design in the first movie is amazing. Not just the music, everything about the sound design. The sound design in this one is awful. It has Foley suddenly being an action hero. There's a time where there's this ride where some children are dangling from the air from this Ferris wheel thingy. Only it's not just a Ferris wheel, and Foley goes on and jumps on these Ferris wheel thingies, carts, wagons, whatever you call them, to save the children, like some fucking action hero. That's not what the Foley is about. And there are so many children. There are no children in the other movies. There are no children moments. In this one, we have a child punch him. We have a very annoying child having a very annoying laughter. It's really, this movie is full of bad ideas. Also some good ones. It has Serge making a comeback.
Ah, well, try to say Serge. It's not so difficult.
And Serge is not as good as he is in the first film, but he's still Serge. He's still good in it.
She can bench press 200 pounds.
He's still making me laugh a lot. And although some of the ideas, that's what I mean, some of the ideas in this one is actually quite okay for, this would not be that bad if it was just a normal comedy. It being a sequel makes it awful, but if it had been any or it would be run-of-the-mill or slightly below average, had it been any other mid-90s comedy. It has this very innovative or this creative idea of having designer weapons that now Serge is not selling art, he's selling weapons. He has this designer weapon that can play music and has a small oven. And of course it makes comebacks later where Foley is using it and it's funny when he's using it. It doesn't feel right and the scene is awful because he can't understand how to shoot it. He keeps playing music instead. And the two people he's fighting, he's not even in cover when he's trying to find out. He's standing like, maybe the cover, which is a bench, is around the stomach level, and he's standing up above that. But instead of shooting him, there are two guys pointing guns at him. When they realize he can't shoot, instead of just shooting him, they start trying to circle him. They are 20 meters away, 10 meters away. Shoot that fucker! What? This movie is very poorly written. It pains me that they did this to my baby. There's so much shit I could talk about in this movie. I need to wrap it up. I really need to wrap it up. I actually have a meeting now in 5 minutes, roughly, so I really need to wrap it up here. I'll make more videos on this because I'm passionate about this movie.
Why are you telling me this? What makes you think I have any interest in that at all?
So, the third one just fails. It fails. It has some decent scenes, but it fails and it has all these... The plot is unnecessarily convoluted while still being basic. It has Foley not being Foley. Not only is he an action hero, but he is a bit of a loose cannon, and he does act irrationally sometimes. He does sometimes act on emotions impulsively when he shouldn't, but not really in ways that really brings him into trouble. In this one, he does it in such a way that it actually jeopardizes him in a scene where he and Rosewood are arrested. There's this running gag of him constantly being arrested at the park, but it doesn't really work as a gag. The action scenes are also worse, and Rosewood also, there's no explanation to it. Rosewood suddenly appears at a time where he really needs to be in a scene to rescue Foley, and there's no reason for him to be. Makes no sense that he's there. It's just so convenient. It's everything that the other movies excelled at. This is the opposite of that. This is the run-of-the-mill, very stupid, very convenient, very poorly written action comedy you get in the 90s. And it's just not a good movie as a result of that. Also, I think George Lucas is in it as a cameo. I think so. Quick wrap-up. First Beverly Hills Cop movie is absolutely amazing, and I might do an even longer video where I tell you about why this movie is so amazing, because this is a good movie. Second film, really good sequel. Definitely watch it if you like the first one. Third movie, not good. Terrible sequel, mediocre movie in its own right.
You know, people been breathing on it, coughing on it, touching it.
So, hope you enjoyed this. Hope you found it insightful. Hope you'll watch these movies if you haven't watched them yet. Hope that whenever the TV show comes, and if it does come, I hope it will be good. So, yeah, take care. Have a nice one. Bye.